Hi, my name is Steve Rahi. I am a cloud solutions architect specializing in management technologies. Today's discussion is another installment in our continuing series focusing on Azure ARC, specifically servers. And today's topic will turn our attention to monitoring insights. It's a really cool capability, really easy to set up, and the value you get back from it is huge, right? And so here's the agenda that I want to go through. So we're going to focus on monitoring insights, and this is what we're going to do. But before, and so there's been several other sessions in this Azure ARC series where I detail what Azure ARC is and go over some of the capabilities, show how to get a server onboarded. I'm not going to go through that again. The one thing I will say, if this is your first time to watch this video, I want you to understand what Azure ARC is, right? So Azure is the Microsoft cloud, and in Azure, you can host virtual machines. And so if you have virtual machines hosted in Azure, then all of the tools in this series that I'm talking to you about are native to Azure, right? So you can use them all you want. That's one, maybe clear up some confusion in our documentation. We say Azure ARC is not supported for servers hosted in Azure. The reason why is it's just not needed. You already have the tools, right? There's no extra piece that's needed to bring those servers in Azure into the fold so you can manage them in Azure. And within that is the real answer to what Azure ARC is. So Azure ARC is that piece that will allow you to take servers, no matter where they are, on-prem, virtual, physical, in third-party clouds, so AWS, Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, whoever's cloud, right? And extend the Azure control plane to be able to manage those servers as well. So another way to think of it, if you like the management capabilities in Azure and you have workloads in other places that you would like to leverage the Azure tools against, Azure ARC is that thing that enables you to do so. So if this, again, is your first time watching a video in this series, know that there is an introduction to Azure ARC. There's also an introduction to Azure ARC for servers where I go through this in a whole lot more detail. That said, let's move on. So we're going to focus on monitoring insights. So what are monitoring insights exactly? So they are abilities to monitor. That would be in the performance. That would also be in the connectivity arena. You see a few of the graphs that are in the monitoring section in front of you, right? There's more than that, which you'll see. But there are these. It's also about control. So if you know how things are going and you have a consistent way to view what's happening, then you do have more control over your infrastructure, ability to see your infrastructure, work with your infrastructure, make sure your infrastructure is optimized, performing, etc. So why do we care? Well, again, it's Azure ARC. It goes back to what I just said. If you want a consistent single pane of glass type opportunity to manage all of your servers in the same way, no matter where they are, then that's Azure ARC, right? Totally. It does support Windows and it does support Linux. So all of the major distributions and even more that you would maybe expect on Linux, we fully support with Azure ARC. It's a centralized tool, again, gives you that single tool to operate against whatever workloads you need to manage, and it's consistent, same experience no matter where that server is located, right? So that's another advantage. So what are the requirements to implement Azure ARC? Well, so at the base, all of the server ARC requirements are requirements. You need to be able to onboard your server to Azure ARC. The good news is everything that's out there that's supported is supportable with Azure ARC. So all of the operating systems you might run, as long as they are supported, now you're not going to get a Windows NT 351 server to onboard into Azure ARC, but anything that's currently supported will onboard just fine, right? There has to be a supported operating system. Again, all of the Windows supported operating systems, then huge swath of Linux operating systems that we support. There's another component called the Azure Connected Machine Agent, right? You need to have that downloaded. That is the piece that actually is the glue that enables this non-Azure server to be managed by Azure, right? And then these last two, Log Analytics Workspace, Log Analytics Agent, those are optional if you choose to go that way. You'll see that more in a minute as we go into the Azure portal. There's also the Azure Monitor Agent. So it's not Log Analytics and Azure Monitor Agent. It's Log Analytics or Azure Monitor Agent, right? And again, you'll see some of that as we go through. So how does this all work? I probably should have updated this slide to say Azure Monitor. I just copied it from the update management presentation. Same usefulness here as there. It's just trying to illustrate where Azure ARC is, what it is. It sits in the cloud. It is an Azure service, right? This Azure service enables connectivity to servers that are outside of Azure and is a gateway to things like Azure Automation and Update Management. Right? Here's another eye chart. I'm not going to try to go through it. I'll pause here for a minute. If you want to take a look, you can pause the video as well. But just trying to show you how monitoring insights actually works, right? Okay. Now, that's about as far as I want to go in the PowerPoint section. The rest of it, I want to go and do some demos, right? So let me show you first of all of the systems that I'm dealing with are running on this laptop where I'm actually recording the video. None of these are in the cloud anywhere. They are simply virtual machines, right? So here's one. There's a Windows virtual machine. Here is a Linux virtual machine. And then I have a third virtual machine somewhere. If I can find it within all these windows, where'd it go? There it is. Here's my third virtual machine as well that I have that I can demo, that I'm going to use for demo. That's all you're going to see of them. I just wanted to show you that is actually there. Right? So let's pull in the Azure portal. Here's where we're going to spend the vast majority of the rest of our time. Right? So in order, what I want to do is I want to get to Azure ARC servers. So I'm going to type in servers and it will pop up Azure ARC. And so whenever I get there, you'll see a few more than what I just showed you. I'll use them for different reasons, but you certainly see the three that I just showed you. This is one that I was using for a different purpose, so it's offline at the moment. But this one is a server, one of the VMs I just showed you, that is fully enabled for monitoring insights, right? You'll see the data. This is a Linux server. This is CentOS, is the Linux distro, and it's fully enabled for Log Analytics or for Azure Monitor, right? This one is one that I'm going to show you how to enable. It's really easy, monitoring insights for a server that is, the server is onboarded to Azure ARC, right? That's why it says connected. And it's just not enabled yet for monitoring insights. And notice that I have my resource group and subscription, and also what this should infer, but I don't want to assume the inference comes across. You can have servers in whatever resource groups that you want to, that you need to kind of group these servers together. And they will all show up in one place, and you can see all of them. Certainly you can filter by subscription and filter by resource groups, but if they are a Azure ARC enabled server, then you can see them all here. You can manage them all here. And you can also, if you look at the updates management video, you'll see where there are some servers that are in updates management that are not Azure ARC servers. Why? Because those are servers that are native to Azure. There's no need for them to be in Azure ARC. So you can use tools like update management to manage everything. Azure ARC enabled servers plus native Azure VMs, right? Okay, anyway, belabor that point. So my lab is boring. It's just all in one resource group and one subscription and so on. The way you organize this, think through it, how you might want to do it for your business needs and so on, or identification needs, whatever. This, again, this is not directly related to monitoring insights. This was already done because these servers were enabled to Azure Arc, but still worth chatting about. Okay, so let's go in and take a look at how things are configured. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go onto this machine. This machine is not currently configured for monitoring insights, right? It is onboarded to Azure Arc, but it is not configured for monitoring insights. So to go and enable this server for monitoring insights, I can click here. I can actually do it a couple of ways, right? I'm just going to show you the easiest way to me in the UI, explain some things, right? So I can go and enable right here, which I will. Right? There's other options I can maybe use. Oh, let's see, Azure monitoring, and see what that will give me. Is that the right button? I can't remember. We'll see in just a second. No. Okay, sorry. Let me go back, and then into monitoring insights, and then let's see, resource group monitoring. Okay, so this is really cool. You'll see this again in just a minute. But in this view, I'm going to see a breakdown of my environment by resource group. This is my resource group. So if I look at that, right, and expand and keep going, you're going to see my server Azure Arc list, and you're going to see exactly 3 servers in this list. And here's my 4 servers with 3 windows and 4. Fourth one is the Linux box. So that's that's still not the one I'm looking for. Hang on a second. Where did that one go? Go back. One moment, sorry. Play around with this for a second. Maybe it is that one. Yeah, I think it is. I'm going to go back to Azure Monitor. I just didn't take it far enough. So I'm going to enable VM Insights, right? So one of the things you'll see about this, I'll show you in a minute. I'm going to click on Analyze Data in a minute. You'll see it kind of takes you in some places it takes you back and forth in a loop almost, but it's just getting familiar. So I'm going to go configure my insights. And so what that's going to do is give me a breakdown of servers that are monitored, servers that are not monitored, and then my workspace configurations. I've got one default workspace that's enabled. I have other onboarding options. I mentioned there's several ways that you can do it. Now this is onboarding of a machine. That's maybe those systems are not in Azure Arc. That's not specifically for monitoring insights, right? So I have 2 monitored servers. These 2 are enabled for monitoring insights, right? These 2 servers are not. This one is because I turned my VM off, right? But you see this one is also, I have an enable button here. So if I want to search through perhaps by resource group and make sure my servers are enabled for the things that I intend for them to be enabled for, I'll see ones here that are not monitored. And I have the opportunity to enable here. I'm not going to enable here. I'm going to enable elsewhere, but I wanted to show you that, right? So let's go back into this server. And this is the one I'm going to install monitoring insights on. And so I'm just simply going to enable it, right? Now, notice I get a choice. Azure Monitor Agent, we recommend that, or Log Analytics Agent. I'm actually going to choose the Log Analytics Agent. And notice what happens. I need a Log Analytics workspace with the Log Analytics Agent. I do not need that with an Azure Monitor Agent. I just use a data collection rule, right? So here I need a Log Analytics Agent so I can go and configure this. The other thing, let me show you. If I do Azure Monitor, then I'm going to have Map. I'm going to show you Map in a moment, disabled. I don't know why we do that. I can force that. In fact, I'm going to try to leave this Azure Monitor Agent. Let's let it set up, whatever. I'm going to have to create a new workspace in order to enable Map. So I'm going to turn that on, and I'm just going to leave it the default, sorry, let's see. subscription, that's correct. And, okay, so here's my data collection rule name. So it's going to be demo custom. I can't use spaces. I always do that. Right? I don't care what I name it. I'm just going to create it for this instance. All right. And so notice by creating the custom workspace and clicking that button for map, it's enabled. Right? So it's up to you. Do you want that? You'll see what map looks like in a minute. Do you want that? Do you not want that? Etc. Right? And then I'm going to go ahead and configure. So this is going to start a job, which I'm going to let run on the back end, a deployment to my server here. And so hopefully by the end of this discussion, this server will be enabled for monitoring insights from Azure ARC, through Azure ARC, right? So, okay, we did that. Now, let's go and see. Technically, I'm switching to another slide where I'm showing you in action, but let's just keep it here on the PowerPoint. Let's go see a server that is configured. I'm going to start with Linux, and the reason I'm going to start with Linux is because if I don't, I'll probably forget to come back and show Linux. So let's just go, it's going to look the same, right? But let's go show Linux. And so you'll see some properties here, right? And then you can see monitoring insights node. So here I can go analyze data. So let me go show you what analyze data goes to. It goes to performance, right? Well, I could have gotten there. Let's go back. I could have gotten there the same way. That's what I mean. Some things are shortcuts, it seems, in here. So if I wanted to, I could simply just go look myself at performance. It ends up in the same view, right? So here's that view. You take this back one more level. And so here, back to the Linux machine, monitoring insights. If I want to analyze data, performance, right, takes me to the same view. So whichever way you go, you're going to get there. Just go to the performance tab directly or through the analyze data, get you the same place. So we have our server. Now, this is a lab server. It's very vanilla, CentOS, boring, right? But you'll see that we have different metrics that we'll keep track of. So the current size, the amount used, the IOPS detail, the megabytes per second read and write, and so forth, right? Then we will take it and give you a graph. Now, mine, again, lab servers, they're boring. They're not doing anything, right? But I can definitely see the different details about them that could be and would be in a production environment very critical metrics to keep track of so that you know how your environment is performing, tracking, whatever else, right? So here's a view into that. Let's see. Let's see. Let me look at the performance analysis. So it's going to be similar, right? But it's going to break it down differently. So here we're building similar kind of graphs, right? But we have some trending. We can do it in certain periods, last 14 days, 30 days, whatever. Mine haven't been up that long, but let's just see. We'll get the performance charts and how things work and the overlays, and again, incredibly valuable information that's very impactful for being able to manage servers and understand servers and so forth while running in your environment, whether they're in Azure, whether they are not running in Azure and running on-prem, third-party, cloud, whatever the case may be. It brings it all together, right? You don't have to do hardly anything. You just enable this, and all of this starts to churn. You can actually get into workbooks. Now, that's beyond where I want to be in this session, right? But workbooks is that thing in Azure that allows you to build custom reporting, and we'll just click on it, and different things, right? So I can build my workbooks. I've got different details I can build, and so on. So I can go create new workbooks and on and on. I actually have a video that's focused on log analytics itself. That in that video, I show you how to build custom workbooks. It would be similar here, right? It'd be similar here. So let me go back. All right. And so back to performance. We saw all that. make sure I didn't miss anything. So you have different views. Here's my performance that I did for analysis. I can look in the workbook gallery. If you have workbooks created, you can look at that. You can look at your network dependencies, connections overview, and see that. So we're actually generating the detail. Again, mine, very boring. It's just a lab server, but you can see the breakdown, how many responses, max links to it, all these different details, right? Just in one place. And then, again, some very useful information that's just right here for you. We go back. All right. So that's performance. Now, I think that's cool. That's worth the price of admission, so to speak, all on its own. But then here's map. Map. Now, again, bear with me. It's my lab. It's really boring. But hopefully you can see the potential for this. So it's going to show you your machine in your environment, how it's connected, and so forth. So you're going to see, for example, I can drag this around, all the different ports that are there, and you could expand this and see the detail, right, that you're connected to, and so forth, all within this view. You can go see, port 443. You can look at what servers that's connected to, and then you're going to be looking at other options here and just keep going, right? All the port 53, what are the servers, 4 servers, 1 server, whatever. And again, if you have a production environment, this will be even more compelling, right? More compelling for sure, right? Okay, but that's not it, right? So this is looking at the performance details. As I click into things, you're going to see, the number change. So the port 80, what it means. I can zoom in, zoom out. I can actually touch different servers and see what the details are with that. Different things. I can scroll down. Let me just go hone in. Notice on my specific link to here, I'm looking at traffic and detail and requests per minute and just all sorts of cool stuff that could be very informative. Let me click on my Linux server. Now I'm back to my Linux server. And so I'm looking at the details of my Linux server, what the distro is, the IP addresses, the health of my Linux server. So I don't have that enabled right now, but I can. So machine properties here, really cool right here at your fingertips. The Azure ARC properties, so you can know right away what subscription ID, the VM ID, and all sorts of different things, right? So that's there. And then we have log events. So if there are events that happen, won't be really much of any significance on these because they are lab VMs, but you can still see the metrics that are happening on a particular server. I can click into those and get into the logs and be able to query the data that is there behind all of this. Let me cancel. Let me go back. Yeah. Get out of here. Okay. And then alerts. If there are any alerts that we have detected on this system, don't have any lab machine, but you can drill into those here, right? Connection details. Who all's connected? What type of connected? Anything malicious detected, right? Etc. Any failed connections, whatever the case may be. It changes. Now, I don't have this enabled. That's going to be another section. I do have a little bit of data here. So that's interesting. Let's go see the change count. What's normal? If I can click into this, let's go to investigate changes, right? And I can be able to see, the changes that have happened and different things as time has progressed and this VM has been running. I can dig into more detail. So folks, this is really, and let's leave this. This is really an easy thing to implement. I'm going to go to Windows now, and I'll show you the same thing. It is the same thing, right? Just for Windows. So let's go to this. And by the way, let me just check my notifications. So deployment still in progress, not surprised with that. Okay, So let's go to this one. This one is enabled for monitoring insights as well, and you'll get the same kind of experience. I'm just going to go directly to the performance tab. I'm not going to go through every screen because it kind of gets redundant, but still, you'll see the same kind of graphs. Here you'll see it in Windows terminology and different detail and so forth, right? So it's all here. You can go in and you can do workbooks, and the same thing I showed you with Linux. You can look at these, and you can go get your connections overview and blah, 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 all of that here, right? Then you can go to map, and on the Windows server, you'll see the same kind of view, and you'll see all the ports that are open and what servers are enabled or are what all's connected there, I should say, and all of this stuff. It's very consistent, nice way to look at detail, even without knowing Linux. You could do some really good analysis and information and so on. Here's a view into all the ports if I want to, so I can see them all. Breakdown of the ports. Let's see. Here's this one. Let's just see what 51. Okay, server group summary, and on and on. You can play with this. Set this up in your lab. Would encourage that and play with it. So here we'll see the log events as well, and what's going on. Again, my lab's so boring. Any alerts? I don't have any. Any kind of connections and what they are, kind of broken down. Anything malicious detected, whatever, and then also any kind of changes that I can investigate and whatever else. Right. So pretty cool capability for sure. Again, working through all these, you've already seen Azure Monitor. Monitoring configuration just shows you how this particular server is configured. So I do have maps enabled, so I can see that, right? And we're good. So yeah. So folks, that's really it. I'm going to minimize this now. I mentioned that this isn't a difficult feature to enable. It's not, right? It really isn't. But hopefully you see the value that you can get from this is significant. And the single pane of glass, so to speak, view of being able to monitor your servers, it's not a full-blown monitoring agent like Operations Manager, but it gives you a tremendous amount of detail with very minimal effort that will help you have a way to consistently view your servers, see how they're doing in different areas, build up custom reports if you want to do workbooks, and on and on and on, right? So good stuff. And that's where we will wrap this one. We'll have some other sessions coming on all of the other features that you saw in there for servers and so on. So stand by for that, and we will see you next time.